Cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves up.
Yo, what's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. It's your boy. I'm Phil Ruskin, host of The Extra Point. I got my guy, Chris, a.k.a. Tycoon. What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I had something pop up last night. Wasn't able to do the boardroom show, so super pumped that I was able to join you tonight, and also because, obviously, we're overdue to have a show together, so it's about time, and just pumped to be here, brother.
Well overdue, man. Well overdue. So y'all know what to do. If you're in the chat, leave those comments. We're going to do some live Q&A at the end. But for right now, hit that subscribe button. You can follow along on Instagram at _extrapoint_FFB. You can catch me on X at P Ruskin. You can message me on Sleeper with any questions you have at P Ruskin. And we're going to go through actually a couple of crowdsourced questions tonight. I am a staff writer for Dynasty Pros, so this show will obviously be streaming on YouTube. You can catch the recording and listen along on Spotify and Patreon at The Extra Point. You can also go over to Dynasty Pros Football, check out my written content there, and you can certainly listen along on Dynasty Pros as well. So before we jump in, and we got a couple announcements, we'll go through the schedule. How are you doing in your leagues, man? Like, I want to know. I mean, we obviously we're in the group chat. We kind of know, like, we're asking questions all the time of each other. You know, should I do this trade? What about this player? Do you have a league or two that you really care about the most? And how are you doing in your main leagues?
So I would say I probably have, I let Scott Fishbowl I pay pretty close attention to, but I've got two main leagues, dynasty leagues that I say are my top two. One is the original, I guess, the home dynasty league. We're in what, year 7 now? Shoot, going for a while.
Nice.
Sadly, I'm 1-2 there, having lost by less than 1/10 of a point in week 2, and then last week being the second highest scorer, but going up against the highest scorer. You know, the funnest week that you can possibly have. So it's a team that I feel like should be 3-0. I think I'm the second highest scorer in the league, but currently out of the playoffs. But optimistic about the return there. And then the other one is the Get Right Dynasty League, 3-0. Just
nice.
Yeah, just gonna roll right through the regular season of Get Right. It's the playoffs there that really matters. We'll 100%. See how that goes.
100%. I know you've seen this because we talked about this last week in the chat. But in the Megala Bowl for the fantasy footballers, I won last week 124.46 to 124.28. So shout out Joe Burrow. Thank you for bringing me back. I bring that up simply. Yeah, that was that last play. It really was. I sent you the screenshot. It was that last pass.
That's what that was. Yes.
Yeah. So I bring that up only to say I don't think I have ever won or lost by that close of a margin. I know I've seen a million, tweets on X and, pictures on Instagram of, I got, this, that, and the other, but I was finally one of them. And of course I was one of the 10,000 or 15,000 people 2 years ago that the Najee Harris 42-yard irrelevant touchdown run against the Brown ended up costing me a championship. So I was a part of that group. Not that I'm bitter about it, still not sour or anything, but here we go. Of course not. No, of course not. It's not like I remember it exactly. So before we jump in tonight, let's go through the schedule because, obviously Get Right Fantasy Network, we got stuff almost every night of the week. On Mondays, you can catch Anthony and Frank, Rasta. I can't keep calling him Anthony, man. It's going to drive me nuts. Rasta and Frank, 9 p.m. They're going to do a recap and waivers show for you guys. On Tuesday, I don't need to say it. Y'all already know what it is. Jump over to the Fantasy Boardroom. Check out Tycoon and his show. Every Tuesday night, coming to you live, 7 p.m. Pacific. On Wednesdays, you can catch my show here in a new time slot, 6 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be going through Dynasty content from a redraft perspective. Obviously, you got to play Dynasty in the season. So we're going to be talking about players that are hot. What are you doing with them in the Dynasty world? And then immediately after this show at 9 p.m. Pacific, Rasta and Frank are back going through buy and sell trade targets in redraft. On Thursday nights, you can catch me again, 4 p.m. Pacific, taking you right up to Thursday night football. We'll be going through some lines that I like on Underdog Fantasy. We'll be going through some DFS plays. And so if the sports betting world is more of your forte for football, come on in. I'll always share what I like and how I'm doing. So if you want to bet along with me, please bet responsibly. But we'll take you through some content there. And then, of course, on Friday, we got our 2 shows, one at 6, one at 8 Pacific. Mike and Kendall, classic Mike and Kendall over at, my brain just went blank. Oh my gosh. Fantasy Football Tavern. Sorry, Kendall. Well, you can catch them doing the first half of the slate sit starts. And then, of course, you can catch me and Rasta immediately following that show at 8 p.m. Pacific as we go through the second half of the game slate for all of the different sit starts. And then on Sunday, Classic Mike at 8 a.m. Pacific, we'll be going through his active, inactive live Q&A, but that sit start advice leading you right up to kickoff. Want to hit the chat real quick. We got Wicked Pompano in here saying, what up? What up, Pompano? We love you, brother. Always appreciate you being here. Of course, we got our guy Rasta, 2 good-looking fellas tonight. What up, Rasta? We got Albert saying hello. I see some questions in here. I see we've got a trade question here already, so we're going to cover that here in just a little bit. Man, that was a mouthful, that schedule. Boy,
No kidding. Good read, though. Good read.
Appreciate you. Yeah, you know, reading, writing, kind of little things you got to do to be successful in life. So, and then let's do one more read. Why not? If y'all
Floyd
don't know,
Mayweather can't read. He's done all right.
He's done a lot better than most of us. I'll be honest. He doesn't know where all his money is, but that's all right. So we're gonna get there. But Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports, from their best ball draft tournaments where you do not have to draft where you draft your team with no season-long time commitments, no waivers, no trades, no weekly lineup setting. You can also enter their Pick'em contest where you pick higher or lower on player stats like total yards and touchdowns. For those that are new players, use the promo code GETRIGHT, 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 and receive a 50% deposit match. Tycoon, you are probably like me. You got the $100 match when you put your $100 in. I imagine. Yes,
I did.
Yep,
do that.
I did as well, folks. It is now $1,000 in bonus cash. I don't know what you're waiting for. Get in there. Yeah, get in.
A couple years too early.
A lot of years too early, man. So, good news is that we got those little shields on our logos, and we're in there, so people know that we're serious. At least I do. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there you go. But visit UnderdogFantasy.com. Download the fastest growing fantasy app from your app store today. Let's jump in, man. Let's do it. Let's talk some football.
I'm ready for it.
Look, the Saints are hot, right? It wasn't expected. It was something I think we were all probably pretty shocked by. They come out slinging it. We were excited about that Clint Kubiak offense. We're going to graduate from the Stone Age into the real world and do some pre-snap motions. Alvin Kamara, are you buying or are you selling? Which is the stronger side from a dynasty perspective?
From a dynasty perspective, it's so contextual, right? Are you contending? Are you rebuilding? Are you somewhere in the middle, not knowing? Maybe you expected to be rebuilding, but you're off to a surprisingly strong start. So those come into play. But I'd say if you are contending, I'm holding. And probably or buying if you don't have them. I'd be willing to pay a second if I'm a strong team and maybe just need that flex to be strengthened a bit to help push me over the top.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this is the last year of Kamara's relevance. I understand age cliff and all that, but I think he's going to be valuable enough even after this year to make paying a second really for this year alone to be worth it. That said, very easy sell if you're not in contention this season, and would be willing to sell for a second. No problem. Obviously, you aim for more, maybe second, see if you can get a throw in of some kind of depth player, maybe a longer shot young player just as a lottery ticket. But I'd be I'd easily take a second for him if I have no chance to win it all this year.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny you say that, right? Because I have Kamara in a couple leagues, and I imagine if the listeners out there have Kamara, you're probably at 2-1 or 3-0, right? I mean, he's winning
Probably.
you. He won you the first 2 weeks, so I think from that perspective, it's kind of hard to sell because you're not really rebuilding. Now, if you happen to have Kamara and no one else and you lost, then sure, sell, right? But I think most people, especially in redraft, like he's won you the first 2 weeks. So
in redraft, I'm holding big time. Not
100%.
Not dreaming of selling him in redraft.
100%. Yeah, exactly. So, look, 29 years old. If my memory, I didn't pull it up right now. I can real quick, but if my memory's right, he has 2 years left on the contract. So I agree with you. I think there's at least one more season where he's going to be relevant. Carr's got another year on that contract, and he's kind of playing like he's in a contract year. I mean, maybe he's worried about Spencer Rattler. So I'm on the side of I'm going to try to sell Kamara for a second plus a younger running back. If I can go grab somebody, if I could, I don't think you could get this done. It's possible. Again, we talk about every league is different, but if you could go get Jalen Wright and a second for Kamara, how do you feel about that trade as the acquiring manager for the second plus Jalen Wright?
I'd feel good about that. I would definitely make that trade.
Yeah.
There's obviously a non-zero chance here of Wright having value this year. I mean, obviously Mostert's already banged up, and with Achane, I don't ever want to put this kind of energy out there, but it's certainly possible at any time. So
sure. Yep. We talk about it all the time.
He's next in line right there. And I mean, it's probably not going to mean much, unless Tua makes it back, but the offense is just so run friendly that he is attractive.
Yeah. Is there another name that kind of, and I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here and I haven't thought about it, but is there another younger running back or maybe a wide receiver, but another younger piece plus the second that you think would be something that if you are shopping Kamara, that the listeners should be, throwing some trades and seeing what bites in their league?
I named for guys like this year's second round rookies like Corum or Lloyd. Blake Corum, the Rams, or Marshawn Lloyd. Lloyd will probably be much easier to get involved since he's done nothing and is currently on IR, was injured through a lot of camp. Corum might be a little more difficult if there's still some folks out there that are still not all the way in on Kyron Williams. So they may be holding out some more hope there. But those would be two of the younger backs. And frankly, his hopeful eventual replacement, Kendre Miller, I don't know if it's going to happen necessarily with the Saints, with the way Dennis Allen talked about him all offseason.
Yeah.
But I haven't written him off for NFL purposes by any stretch. He's a prospect that I really liked. So he'd be a guy I'd be interested in, that younger back.
This is interesting. Rasta jumping in the comments here saying, if I was selling Kamara, I'd want Brooks and a second.
You're not getting that, though.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's not happening. You're
not getting Brooks straight up for Kamara.
No, I don't think so either. It's interesting because, I think if you... I didn't plan to talk about it tonight, but let's talk about him just for a minute or two. If you're the Brooks manager and this is week 4, he's eligible to come off of IR. Are you throwing him in next week? Are you waiting a week or two? Where is your, I'm ready to feel comfortable starting Brooks? Let's not say in your RB spot, just in a flex. I'm ready to put Brooks in the lineup.
Probably his second week.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
Unless the first week is so bad, or maybe they've been happy what they've seen from Hubbard the previous couple of weeks by the time he is inserted. So I do want to see not even so much about performance, but just what the initial usage looks like. And just kind of the eye test at first. So I'd like to see 1 week, and if it's even passable for me, I'm immediately throwing him in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I need to see his usage. I'm less concerned about his production because I expect that to be, what it's going to be is going to be. Take it all with a grain of salt. I said last week in our sit start show, I said, look, I'm throwing T. Higgins in my flex, and if I get 3 for 34 and 1, I'm absolutely thrilled with that. And if my memory's right, he went 3 for 36 and 0. So I was like, all right, pretty spot on with my line there. We just didn't get the touchdown. So here, Perry in the comments here, I'd be giving Kamara and a second or third for Neighbors if they take it.
I don't think
that gets done. Yeah, I don't think that. I love it. I love the ambition. Go for it. If it gets done, DM us.
Yeah,
trades that shouldn't get done all the time. But
that's true.
I think you're talking about the wide receiver 1 right now. He was the wide receiver 2 in rookie drafts this year. If you're in a single quarterback league, he was the 102 off the board pretty unanimously. So Yeah,
The
I think
hype's
that's
never been higher.
no.
So
Even
the price
even
has
with
never been
BJ.
higher.
Yeah, and ironically, we're going to talk about him right now. So
Briefly, before we move over,
yeah.
Kamara's contract. So he does actually have 3 years left after this, but the final 2 years are void years
Okay.
in 26 and 27. And they could get out of it even next year if they wanted with a dead cap of 10 million. So
Yeah,
that's
10
the
million's
potential. They probably won't do that. So in all likelihood, probably just one more year.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, I mean, I say it all the time on just about every show that I'm ever on when we talk about Dynasty. I play Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window. So if you're buying
Yes.
Alvin Kamara for 2 years, go get
I think
yourself
trying to project past 2 or 3 years is a fool's errand in the NFL.
100%. I mean, as we talk about all the time, any player can get hurt on any play. And so it's, yep, I'm with
Things
you.
change like this.
Yes. I mean, well, we've got some names that we're going to talk about tonight that have become relevant because things changed like this. So you and I were talking pre-show, and I had 4 different people reach out to me with the same exact question. So I threw it in the sheet tonight because we got to talk about it. I don't want to talk about Tyreek Hill and are you buying or selling. What I want to talk about is this question that came up. 4 different folks asking me, Tyreek Hill plus what equals Malik Neighbors. I tweeted it out today. I threw it on the Instagram account. I had a couple comments come through. What, first of all, would you want the Neighbors side or the Hill plus a piece side? Let's start there, and then we'll talk about what piece maybe equates to a Malik Neighbors.
I'm all in on Neighbors, so I'm likely taking, unless the plus is absolutely crazy, I'm taking the Neighbor side over the Hill plus. And this is a guy who has a lot of Tyreek Hill in my Dynasty portfolio. So, yeah. But I'm almost certainly going to take the Neighbor side. And I've been thinking about this since you shared the show sheet with me today. All right. Probably, I would say at least a first, frankly.
Yeah.
And the aim on my buying side is I try to limit it to that. I think that's still potentially possible, but we need to see a decent game from Hill without Tua here in the next few weeks in order for that, I think, to be achievable.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I said when we're going to talk about it, I'll just say this really quickly because I know someone listening is going to have the question. I'm buying low on Tyreek Hill. I'm certainly not selling because this is his floor. He has no Tua.
That's very true.
It was a disaster last week, and it was pretty much a disaster for most of the Dolphins, but especially for Tyreek. I mean, he just burned everybody, regardless of what format you're in. They're talking about Skylar Thompson could get replaced with remind me, my brain. I
Boyle or even Tyler Snoop Huntley.
That's it, Huntley. Thank you, Huntley.
I hope it's Huntley, not Boyle.
I do too. I mean, Huntley at least can run a little bit, right? We saw that in Baltimore when he filled in for Lamar Jackson a couple years ago. So if you are interested in Tyreek, it's never been a better buy low window than right now. But I had someone say, I have an offer on the table for Malik Neighbors. He wants Tyreek and a first for him. And I said, counter with Tyreek in a second just to see what happens. But I am okay paying the first because I do think it's fair. You're getting a 21 or 22-year-old rookie who's the wide receiver 1 in an offense that's terrible with a quarterback that's probably not even going to be the guy next year. So unless they go and sign, someone who's worse than Daniel Jones, in theory, exactly right. So in theory, it should get better for Neighbors with a better quarterback. I mean, we talked about it in the offseason, prior to the Cowboys re-signing Dak, but we said, what if Dak, who's really the only true free agent quarterback next year, what if he goes to the Giants? What does that do for Malik Neighbors' stock portfolio? So I'm with you. I do think if you can go and get, youth and what we project him to be, I would take that over the historical performance in the age of Tyreek. So, I'm okay paying that price, Tyreek in a first, to go acquire Neighbors. And if he keeps playing the way he is and your team has some other pieces, maybe that's a mid to late first, and you'd feel really good if that's the 106 or beyond.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
In your
If
draft.
it ends up being
great.
the second half of the first round pick, I'd be over the moon with that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So, all right, let's do this. If it's not a first, if it's a veteran player, let's just do 1 minute here. Tyreek plus what veteran would you need to get to go and to sell, to go and acquire Neighbors?
If it's a veteran, I think it'd have to be, maybe he's a little too old, but I mean, somebody like Mike Evans.
Yeah, it's 2 older guys though. That's the only thing I was thinking.
So it might need to be a little bit younger. I mean, you're not trying to think who's in probably more that prime age, 27, 28-year-old, but not like AJ Brown or somebody.
No.
Who's kind of in that second tier?
What about Devonta Smith? What about Michael Pittman, Chris Olave? Any of those names?
I'm lower on Pittman
Yeah.
than have been for some time, so I easily do Pittman.
Yeah.
So even somebody, like maybe Smith, just because he's dealing with AJ Brown there, but Olave I probably wouldn't. I think he's a little undervalued at the moment.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith is probably about as rich as I'd really want to go. I'd maybe try to see if maybe Chris Godwin could get it done.
Well, I was to say, Rasta just threw that in the chat with Chris Godwin.
Oh,
I think it's
exactly.
It's possible, right? He's a little older as well. I was just thinking about like pre week one and post rookie draft, redraft drafts. We were looking at that pocket of tier 2 receivers, and we knew the contract situation was a mess, but Brandon Ayuk, Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Drake London, Garrett Wilson was kind of at that 1-2 turn. Like those are all guys that we felt like was kind of a flat tier. I'm still very high on Devonta Smith personally, so I think I'd have a hard time with that one, but I'm pretty okay with most of those. I know people are through the moon for Wilson and why is my brain blanking? I want to try to say Drake London there, but I do think that there's some interesting names with Tyreek and a still younger wide receiver that's kind of with that should be a first round guy, should produce as a top 10 guy, but yet has never done it. That I'd be okay with that. I think Olave is probably where I would draw the line. I would do Olave and Tyreek for neighbors. I know some people go, how could you do that? But
I don't think that's crazy. I mean, there's probably a little beyond my conviction, but I don't think that's outrageous by any stretch. I mean, I think, like I said, that probably viewed that as a relatively flat tier preseason. Yeah. So I guess it's just a matter of has the 3 weeks so far done anything to change your, and I mean not yours specifically, but just the viewer, to change your perspective on Garrett Wilson or Drake London or Chris Olave? Because it's been, a mixed bag there versus preseason hope, so to speak. So
for sure,
if your long-term projection has adjusted based on what you've seen here, say, hey, London has a QB and it's still been a bit underwhelming. Maybe he's not the guy I thought he was, so to speak. Then maybe you're comfortable with it. If you still think, hey, new system, Kirk's still getting comfortable, still not at full health, this is still the floor with Kirk Cousins, with Drake London, then maybe you're not as inclined.
Yeah.
Now I'm still pretty optimistic about Wilson, London, and Olave, so that's why I'd say that's a little much for me.
Yeah, I just think it's more of a question of, again, a lot of what we talk about in Dynasty is projections. If you project neighbors out to be a Tyreek Hill right, in that type of comparable, can win you the week. He's winning you weeks right now. And you knew, crystal ball, you knew you were getting a guaranteed top 10, top 12, depending on your league size wide receiver, then maybe that changes your perspective. So I don't know. Again, if I have that trade in my inbox right now.
How strong your conviction on neighbors is a factor too. Sure.
For sure. So let's switch gears. Let's jump over to the running back position, because in week one, this player had 34% snap share. He had 8 carries for a grand total of 12 yards. Week 2, he had 69 total yards and a touchdown. Week 3, he snapped 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is Mr. Zach Charbonnet. How are you feeling about, obviously, him being for the time being, RB1 in Seattle? Obviously in redraft, you're holding, you're starting. There's no questions there, especially with KW3 still dealing with the injury. But what are you doing in a dynasty league with Charbonnet? And then do you think he has any standalone value when KW3 comes back?
I'm holding him in dynasty, and I do think he will have low-end flex value standalone when Walker returns. I mean, I do like Walker a lot, and I think the team trusts him. I mean, he was playing well early before he got injured, so I don't think it's going to be something where they're going to shoehorn Charbonnet in there heavily, despite how well he's performed the last couple of weeks. But I do think he's done enough that they can't really keep him off the field that much either.
Yeah.
So I do think it's going to ding Walker a little bit, and I do think it gives Charbonnet, like if you're in a multiple flex league, that second flex, I think he's in that range. And as far as Dynasty goes, look, running back is so fragile, and these opportunities are not necessarily, this isn't just a one-off for Charbonnet. So I think he's done enough to establish himself with a team and on my own Dynasty teams where I have him, that anytime Walker misses time, I mean, I've got an RB1 right there. And in a couple of years, we'll see if he even remains with this team, if he gets a shot as the lead guy somewhere else. So he's a guy that I don't think you're going to get appropriate value back for if you tried to move him. Best case scenario, maybe a second. I have no interest in a random second for Charbonnet.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you say that, because I think for me, I'm not generally a fan of handcuffing with the same backfield. I think we always presume health. I mean, we draft to say that our teams are going to be the best teams because we think they're going to stay healthy all year. And if that's our thought process, then you can't play Charbonnet. Like, you can play Monty and Gibbs together. I know there's not a lot of teams out there that probably have them both rostered in a dynasty format, but if you are and you're in a pinch, you can play them both together and still get, a flex and an RB points enough to actually help you compete and win the week. But I wonder if Charbonnet, to me, my point was I was going to try and make was that I'm okay actually if I'm the KW3 owner, because he's missed time in all of his seasons, right? This isn't like a first time he's ever missed in his career. So I'm okay going to get Charbonnet and paying to have somebody that I feel like has enough value to obviously look 107 and two touchdowns last week. I wonder if it's more of a timeshare moving forward now. And that's my biggest question about Charbonnet, has he proven enough? Because historically we've seen when Walker's I know it's a new coaching staff, but when Walker was the guy, he was pretty much the guy. There wasn't a lot left over for Charbonnet, some third down, some, maybe a drive here and there, but it was pretty much Walker's backfield. So based on what you've seen, it's a small sample size. Do you think that this becomes a little bit more of a muddied backfield when Walker is back, or do you think Walker kind of gets, assuming health, thrust right back into his role?
No, I think if healthy, I think Walker is basically thrust right back into his role. Yeah. And if we go back to week 1 with both full health, 34% snap share for Charbonnet.
Yeah.
And it's also not like Charbonnet hasn't played well another time in last season as well. I mean, we know he's a good player. I think the staff probably knew that as well. So So for me, I don't think this is really a huge revelation to them. And frankly, even week 2, 14 for 38. I mean, he did have 5 receptions for 31 yards, but it's good. It's not exceptional. It was a nice fantasy performance because he also scored. And added 5 receptions, but it wasn't world breaking. He was really good against Miami, but
Miami's defense is a
team right now.
So sieve.
No, I think Walker goes right back to lead dog. I think he maybe cuts in a little bit. Charbonnet had 8 carries there in the first week, so maybe assuming that same level of volume, okay, maybe he gets bumped up to like 10 carries. But no, I still think it's Walker's backfield when healthy.
Yeah.
Maybe they work in a little more creative sets to have them both on the field at times, but I don't think it's going to take that much away from Walker.
Yeah, I mean, if there wasn't, the number, I mean, call Tyler Lockett what you want to call Tyler Lockett, but with Metcalf, JSN, it's not like they don't have receivers. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they need to put, 2 guys out there to complement, one's a pass catcher on the slot, one's in the backfield. So
no, they don't.
Yeah, Charbonnet is interesting. So let's move over to the old San Francisco 49ers. Well, Christian has taken an international flight to Germany to go get an injection shot for his Achilles tendonitis. The reports that I'm reading are 6 to 8 weeks at a minimum from the time the injection. So that was yesterday. What is your thoughts on Jordan Mason right now? I think at this point, Elijah Mitchell, before we get into Jordan Mason really quick, just kind of quick yes or no. Is Elijah Mitchell done in your mind as far as dynasty? Yeah, I'm with you. I think he is. I'm done with him as well. Okay. So if we look at the depth chart, then Elijah Mitchell on IR, thanks for being a part of the team. Hope things, hope you have a, career somewhere else. It doesn't look like it's going to be there. And then we've got Garendo, who's not featured a ton. It's Mason's backfield. So is Mason a season long redraft buy? Is he have some dynasty value? Where's your temperature check on Jordan Mason? Because at some point Christian McCaffrey will come back, whether it's late this season or next.
Right.
What's your temperature check on Mason?
From a redraft perspective, I mean, whoever has him, they have free money. I think you'd have a really hard time prying him unless you're trading a star player. So I don't know that there's much to be had there. From a dynasty perspective, well, after week 1, I sold him for a second straight up in a half PPR league.
Okay, nice.
Before the Germany news with Christian. Now, I didn't necessarily think Christian was going to come back right at the 4-week mark or anything like that. I mean, I figure Thanksgiving is optimistic, honestly. But even then, come prime playoff time, come fantasy playoff time, not prime playoff time. If he's back, then you lost all your potential value there with Mason.
Yeah.
That said, it makes me kind of think, just given everything in preparation for the playoffs, even if CMC is back, they're not going to ride him like the horse they did last year. I think they will. And with how well Mason performed, I think they're going to really control that workload late in the year just to make sure that CMC is fully good to go for the playoffs, assuming he can make it back for the playoffs at all. So I think that gives Mason good value, and I would probably keep his value at a second in Dynasty currently. And whereas I just sold him a couple weeks ago for a second, I'd be willing to buy him in a team where I need RB help right now for a second. No problem.
Yeah, I have the second round valuation as well. The one thing that I think you didn't mention that's interesting, that is the way that I look at it, is Deebo Samuel. And why I bring Deebo's name up is not because he's not available right now, but I really felt like if Ayuk got moved, it signaled that Deebo was going to be retained. Deebo's on the last year of his contract. He's getting older. I know they scheme plays for him. The Niners love him. They use him in ways that really help the football team. But they've got to pay Purdy. They've paid McCaffrey. They've paid Kittle. They've got offense. They've paid Bosa. So they've paid money to players. They've paid Ayuk now. So I kind of go back to where we were leaning this summer of like, one of these receivers is going to be the cap casualty. And I as much as they love Deebo, he's 27. He's getting older. He's got his injury history. I think if you can keep Mason on the team cheap because you've paid McCaffrey, because you've seen now, at least in 3 weeks, and I expect to see more weeks from him, that you've got a guy who's fully capable in an offense that we really like, knowing you've got to pay Purdy, I think Mason's got some staying power with the Niners. So I think buying him for a second if you need a running back is a good buy. I don't know what his value is when Christian McCaffrey comes back, but that's what you had just said, right? Like if, he's going to get thrust in, but is he truly going to get everything? No.
Yeah. And I'd want to, as soon as CMC comes back, if he's starting, I'm benching Mason, want to see what happens, but I think it's a good chance he has some level of flex value. And I could see him definitely being re-signed for next year. And I'm kind of with you. I still, unfortunately, because as a fan, it's going to just be devastating. I absolutely love Deebo, but I do sense that this is his final year with the 49ers, which is a shame. And some of that money obviously is going to be used to ink Purdy long-term. And I think they'll use some scraps of that to keep Mason there in the backfield.
I'm a big snowboarder, and I try to wear my Deebo Samuel jersey on Sundays when I go snowboarding. And I've got one ear pod in, got my music going, but I love getting on a ski lift and hearing Deebo. It just makes me so happy. Every Sunday I got my Deebo jersey on. So, yep. All right, let's move into some players that are I don't know if they're trade targets, and that's why I kind of put this in question marks here, but I want to start at the top. Carson Steele in a dynasty format. Are you trading for him? Do we think this is a committee with P. Ryan and Hunt? How do you see this backfield? Obviously, rookie player. We've only seen 3 games from him. We don't have much to go off other than the fact that he's in there now because Pacheco's on IR. So what are your thoughts early in the season on Carson Steele? Is he a player that you are targeting as a trade for target in Dynasty?
So it's briefly discussed this in the pre-show, basically that, hey, we got to talk about Carson Steele at this point.
Got to talk about him.
It's a factor. I am not targeting him really at all. I do think as Hunt now is on the active roster, P. Ryan's been passable, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be back at full health here within a matter of weeks. So I don't really see Steele as being any sort of, certainly not going to be a bell cow, but I mean, I'm not even sure he's going to end up with half the running back, where I think he's going to be a touchdown dependent play, and you just got to hope he's the guy that gets the play there down at the goal line. But with the other backs in the mix, with some of the trickery they'd like to do with these little shuffles to Kelsey sometimes when they're inside the 5, I don't know how frequent that's going to be. He's not a guy I'm really looking to acquire. No, I'm not especially interested.
Okay. I just traded for him today, actually. And the reason I traded for him is because here's my running back room in this team. This is the first year. We just had the draft this year. David Montgomery, Marshawn Lloyd, Trey Benson, Raheem Mostert, Pierce, Algier, Warren, and Chandler, with Nick Chubb and Elijah Mitchell. So I have no running backs. I have none.
I can see why on that team you would make this move then, yes.
I have no running backs.
That's what you're dealing with.
And I didn't trade a future. I have Drake London on this team, and I got this was an auction startup, and I think one of my $1 players was Darnell Mooney.
Okay.
So I traded Mooney for Steele. I probably got the on paper, if you go to keep trade cut, I quote unquote lost the trade. They wanted one more small little piece for 800 points. And look, don't go and say the keep trade cut's the gospel. I hate trade calculators. I use them to make sure that if I have a valuation that the crowdsource is like, I'm not super way off, and I will pay what I need to pay if I value the player. But I needed the running back. I did it for 2 reasons. Number one, Pacheco 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
That we just talked about, Christian McCaffrey, your fantasy season could be over by the time, if your team's not doing well, by the time those guys actually come back.
Right.
I don't want to play Drake London and Darnell Mooney together. I don't know that you can. Sure, they both had good weeks last week. Mooney led the team in targets, 8 targets, 8 catches, I believe, off those targets. And then obviously London with another touchdown again. But I needed a running back, and I don't believe in Clyde. I think they re-signed him because he was cheap. I think Kareem Hunt is old. Yes, he's back. P. Ryan is old. So one thing I do believe is that Patrick Mahomes needs some help, and Travis Kelce's not getting it done right now. Xavier Worthy has had one amazing week and 2 stinkers, and Rashee Rice is getting everything. So you have to play Dynasty, unfortunately. We talk about 2 to 3 year window, but you still have to play for the season that you're in. So I don't project Steele to be great, but I don't project Mooney to be great. So I do think it's maybe a tiny, tiny bit of a, overpay. But at the end of the day, I need the guy, I need the body, and I think he's going to get first run in that offense.
The difference between those players is where do you need the help on your roster, in my opinion.
That's it.
If I needed running back out, giving up Mooney, no sweat. I know he's had some nice early chemistry with Cousins, but am I projecting him to be anywhere sniffing near 8 catches a game, double-digit targets a game? No, not in chance in hell. I mean, this is a nice little groove he's found himself in.
For sure.
This might end up being one of the better runs he might have in his career, frankly. So
agreed. Yeah, and look, and the wide receivers in that team for me are Drake London, as I mentioned, Jaden Reed, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, Khalil Shakir. So I have some receivers that I feel really good about. Josh Downs. So I feel good about where I'm at, with my receiver core, because my running back room is basically Monty and Bubkus, right? And nothing there. So, but interesting, again, keep an eye on Steele. He had a good week last week. If he has another good week this week, we'll see. We'll see what he is. So I thought of this name. Sorry, go ahead.
Before we break him up, you mentioned, Hunt's old, P. Ryan's old. You don't believe in Hilaire. I don't really believe in Hilaire either. So I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm a CEH guy, but it's just back to the idea. When Steele's gotten his touches, he's been okay. I mean, I wouldn't, not a guy that came in with a great pedigree anyway, so I'm not expecting him to, come in and be Breece Hall or somebody, obviously.
Correct.
But just incredibly replaceable is how I view it. So I think on a week-to-week basis, it could just be who's got the juice that day, which is why I'm not really looking to acquire him. Again, in the situation you just laid out, if you are in such a situation, if you're desperate for running back, there are a lot worse options. I'd be willing to take a shot on him.
For sure.
But as far as just in a vacuum general Dynasty viewpoint, not a guy I'm really looking for or thinking I'm getting any kind of sneaky value with.
And I'll say that as well. If I didn't put it this way, in the other leagues that I'm in, and I'm in a ton of leagues, I am not targeting, nor do I have any shares of Carson Steele, right? So this was an extreme case, but I wanted to bring it up because there may be people that are in extreme cases. So, hey, here's a trade that I got done. You can get done in your league. And if you're a contender and you've lost Pacheco, go get Steele. If you've lost, I know you got DeAndre Swift on the wall. I don't want to beat up your boy, but It's not been pretty for him, right? Rashad White's losing. So I think there's guys that are out there that, if you drafted CMC at the 101 and now all of a sudden it looks like a lost season, or at least a majority of a season. I think there are, like you said, worse guys. So this next name is gross, but after what we saw last week, and I'm going to preface this in Superflex only, what do you think about Andy Dalton?
So I'm gonna disagree with you right off the top. I don't think it's that gross.
Okay.
I got a soft spot for the red rifle. I just like A Dalton. He's and I've kind of done the Andy Dalton thing is that late QB2 in Superflex leagues in the past, and it's worked out well. I mean, not every week is going to be great, especially playing on a team like Carolina. This is probably going to be one. This week he just had will probably be one of the better ones. Playing the Raiders, the emotion, the juice of being reinserted, kind of reinvigorating the guys. They can believe in the team again, not going out knowing they're going to lose with Bryce Young. But there will still be, so it'll probably be a matchup dependent thing for him moving forward. But there will be good matchups. The NFC is not that great, so he'll have his chances. And certainly the NFC South is not especially great defensive. I mean, the Saints defense is good, but other than that, he'll have decent opportunity against the other teams.
What's your price on him? That's the real question.
I'd be, if you really need that quarterback in a redraft Superflex league, I mean, I'd be willing to give up a solid flex player to make sure I have a reliable Superflex in Andy Dalton. As far as picking a name for that, golly, I don't know, somebody in like maybe even the wide receiver 3 type tier of value.
That's what I was thinking about one of the Buffalo receivers. Like, would you give up Khalil Shakir for Andy Dalton?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so
that's probably right around the range I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like, it's a crowded, like Lockett I would give up for Dalton because of the JSN emergence, or what we think is the emergence, and then DK is obviously the guy. So that one I thought was too easy, but because the ambiguity there with Cook and Kincaid and Coleman, I mean, there's just so many guys that are pass catchers, and right now, I mean, they all caught a touchdown last week, but they're all kind of the same right now. There's no one that's really emerged, so that was why Shakir came to mind. Yeah, I mean, look, if you lost Bryce Young in Superflex, and some people did, then I think you need to try to find a way to get Dalton. But at the same time, if you aren't the Bryce Young owner, he becomes interesting. 66 quarterbacks started an NFL game last year, right? We've talked about that stat a ton. So we're already at 35 or 36 this season, right? With Skylar Thompson and with Dalton, and we've got one or two others that are escaping my brain right now, but it's a couple other guys. So Malik Willis, there you go, right? So like, I'd rather have Andy Dalton than Malik Willis because Jordan Love is already practicing this week, and whether he plays or not, we'll find out. We'll have to tune into the practice reports. Tune into our sit start shows on Friday. But I also think you've got Canales saying he's the guy going forward. So I look at him as a rental. He's a rental for the season.
They've also said, or at least it's been reported that they view the pricing, temporary, blah, blah, blah. Look, I think he is the guy. He'd have to put together, I think, probably a stretch of like 3 under average or below average type of performances for him to think about going back to Bryce this season. So I think he's relatively stable the rest of the year, short of, your surefire franchise QBs that have their positions locked down. And that in and of itself has a lot of value. So, I mean, also, even, I know we've been giving this valuation out a lot, but in Dynasty, if you're in a desperate situation and your team has a chance, easily would throw a second at Dalton.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, but I would if I really needed that help.
I agree. I think if you're a contender and for some reason your quarterback situation is upside down, then I think you can. And that's, again, sometimes you got to, scared money don't make money. You got to go try to win the championship. So
absolutely
figure that out. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because we've got 3 redraft kind of surprise guys that have certainly surprised all of us that I do want to talk a little bit about. But do you think it's worth rostering Joe Flacco right now, even if you are not the Anthony Richardson owner? Do you think, basically my question is do you think there's a possibility Richardson gets benched?
Well, I'm still going to split it up. I do think Flacco should be rostered.
I agree.
In Superflex leagues. I don't think Richardson will get benched for performance, though. I do think his playing style and injury history leaves that potential risk there, which is why I say keep Flacco, stash him if you can.
Yep.
But I don't think Steichen will go so far as to bench him for performance reasons this season. Now, if it carries over into something, next season, Bryce Young type of situation, maybe partway through next year, probably not 2 games in, because I think you're still going to see some of the big time pop performances that show why everybody's so damn tempted by Anthony Richardson. Those games are still going to happen, and I think as much as fantasy owners get tempted by the physical tools of what you're seeing and some of just these wow plays. Like same thing with the coaching staff, and they're going to realize, hey, there's still things that Anthony can do that Flacco could never dream of doing, and that's going to keep him in there. I mean, he'd have to really. I can't even imagine what level of performance he'd have to be at to lose his job for performance this year.
Yeah, the reason I thought about it was simply because you have Dave Canales coming out and saying Andy Dalton gives us the best chance to win, and if I look at that Panthers roster, I go, you don't have a chance to win. You could have Tom effing Brady as your quarterback. You don't have the pieces to win. Sure, you're going to win some games, but even in your own division, you're not better than Atlanta, and you're not better than the way that the Saints are playing right now. And I still have you behind Tampa. So
absolutely,
I didn't understand the move for Young because it's 2 games into a season where he's on his second year. He had nobody last year in there. He's basically got the same pieces with a Xavier Legette, addition, and a Jonathan Brooks that hasn't touched the field yet. So I didn't get the move unless Canales is basically saying Bryce Young's going to get traded to the Giants next year. Right?
So my theory with that is that it actually wasn't about the best chance to win games this year, except in the sense of he's the brand new head coach in the room. He's got no equity yet there.
Sure.
I think it was so he didn't lose the locker room immediately upon getting this job. I mean, I think his in that room were just thinking like, really, this is what we're doing. I think it was really just to keep confidence from his players in him that he is going to try to make moves because from the players' perspective, it's always about winning this week, no matter
100%.
what the team situation is. So, and I think that's what he had to do to make sure he didn't lose that locker room immediately.
And that's what just kind of like, that's where I made the comparison of like, well, okay, Steichen, second-year coach, they made the playoffs last year without Richardson, to do the same kind of thing, right? That's why I was like, do they bench Richardson? Is getting the best chance to win. So, I dropped Anthony Richardson this week in a redraft league. In my main redraft league, I picked up Jaden Daniels. So I'm going to just stay hot with a similar archetype player and just try hope that Daniels stays hot. But at the end of the day, in Dynasty, if you're in a super flex and you've got a third quarterback option and you can play him, maybe you bench Richardson, but I'm certainly not. I'm with you. I don't expect him to lose his job, and I'm certainly not super worried about it, but I do think Joe Flacco is worth rostering.
I think the other key difference too why I don't think he'll get benched is with Bryce already had a full season of mostly terrible play.
True.
Whereas with Richardson, very brief 4 games last year, most of which was very intriguing, not all great, but enough that you're like, oh man, can't wait to get him back out on the field next season. So and week 1, even this week was fine. So it's really only been 2 bad weeks. We gotta. I don't see that as a real risk.
Yeah. Yep. Well, this is mostly a Dynasty show, obviously, but it is redraft season. We're in the thick of it. So I just want to switch gears for some of the redraft players and talk about 3 redraft surprises this week. And let's start with number 1. Look at 12 targets. He turned 11 of those 12 targets into 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. What are you thinking about Mr. Juwan Jennings? Is he going to stay hot? Are you confident enough to start him this week with Debo likely missing another week and George Kittle still being limited?
It's very funny you asked this because this question was actually asked in a league chat, the Get Right Dynasty league chat.
There you go.
5 o'clock today, just a couple hours ago. So
there
this
you
was addressed. And basically, my thought is this: as long as Debo is out and Kittle's banged up, and especially if he's out, I'm firing up Jennings. If it looks like Kittle's going to go, but it's very hampered, which knowing George, good chance he'll, if he can physically make it out there, he's going to do it unless, they stop him.
Yep.
Then I'm still comfortable firing up Jennings.
Yep.
And I will be Brock's dealing right now. He looks good. The Niners, the vibes are bad for the team as a whole, but the offense is fine.
Yep.
So I'm still comfortable firing up. I'm not looking to acquire him really or anything like that. It's just I'm happy with the found money for maybe the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I played him all over DFS last weekend. I am very happy that I did. I think he was a pretty chalky play given what we knew about it. But look, he performed. He hit.
Would be higher actually, and it wasn't.
I was a little surprised by it. I don't know if people didn't like the matchup
or
the
tournament I was in. It was like,
yeah, it
wow,
wasn't.
I expected
It
him to be like
massive.
25%.
But thank you, Juwan Jennings, for helping me to build my bankroll last week. I appreciate you winning me some money. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Let's talk about another former 49er, this year's QB4 on the season. Week 1 drops 208-2, week 2 268-2, and last week, week 3 181 and a quad. Samuel L. I have no idea if his middle name is L or not, but it's just the best thing. But Samuel Darnold. Are you confident? In Superflex, you're starting him, but in a single quarterback league, are you comfortable starting in a redraft format Sam Darnold? No. If you assuming you punted and went with super heavy build elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you totally punted QB, yeah, but I mean, I don't know that I'm viewing him as a top 12 quarterback the rest of the year. Anyway, so and also part of me can't get this stretch out of my head. 2021. In that offseason, he was traded to Carolina.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember his first 4 games with the Panthers, but I certainly do. And pulling it up. So he started 20 fantasy points, 21.9, 28.26, 34.5 there in Week 4 against Dallas. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. Now, I'm not going to confuse that Panthers team with what he has here in Minnesota, with Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, Kevin O'Connell as head coach. I mean, that'd be foolish. I'm a USC fan too, so I mean, I love Sam. What can I say? I kind of accepted after the end of his Panthers tenure that he's probably not an NFL starter. Was the way I was looking at it, and it looks like he may just be a guy who needed that proper fit. I mean, even in his time, some small appearances with the 49ers last year. I mean, we saw that he could be okay in a good system. Oh, it's Richard. Interesting.
Thank you, Rasta. We needed that was an important contribution to the show. Sorry to cut off your take there, but Samuel Richard Darnold.
So he really is Big Dick Darnold. That's right.
That's
yes.
Right.
No, seriously, I wasn't overly impressed with how he performed, even with us. We lost that game to the Rams in Week 18, and then his mop-up. It was fine. Preseason was fine. So I certainly didn't see like this level coming. That said, on the flip side, I always thought he was good enough that I told people don't worry about Justin Jefferson in redraft or dynasty.
Agreed.
I was still happy to draft Aaron Jones. I still thought the offense would be able to hum enough. I just wasn't expecting this level of performance from Darnold. And I do think we'll see a little bit of regression as the season goes on. I mean, seems like quarterbacks, especially when they first get under Kevin O'Connell, look fantastic. Dobbs was great for a couple of weeks. We get some nice games out of Nick Mullins there in Minnesota. But eventually, with the level of where their talent's at, things do come back down to earth. And I do think we will see that with Darnold as well.
Yep.
Although I kind of hope not. I do, for real life purposes, I don't want Minnesota to be winning too many games, but for my likeness of Sam himself, I mean, I like to see him finally having some success.
At Green Bay this week, at home against the Jets next week, and then the bye. So interesting to see some matchups coming up here for Darnold.
These next 2 are going to be big. They're going to tell us a lot.
So I brought it up. I think the next 2 are going to be very telling. So I'll be honest, I haven't finished my rankings yet for this week. So I know everyone's going to say, would you sit him? Would you start him? And obviously check out our Friday shows. I don't know yet. I have to finish my rankings first. But redraft surprise number 1 for me. I saved him for last because this player was written off for dead. In week 1, he goes 3 for 38, no touchdown, and everybody's like, yep, same old Quentin Johnston. And then he comes back in week 2, 5 for 51 and a deuce. And then last week, 2 for 44, but he adds another touchdown. So are you comfortable flexing Quentin Johnston? Is he someone that I'm going to answer my own question before I turn it to you. I wouldn't trade for him in a redraft league. I don't believe this is anywhere close to sustainable, but what are your, what's your temperature check on Mr. Johnston there?
I'm with you. I don't think it's sustainable either. I don't have much of him in Dynasty or Redraft. A bit in Best Ball, which is paying dividends and is nice.
That's where I want him. Gabe Davis light.
But yeah, I see this one I haven't pondered a lot because I just don't think about Quentin Johnston very much.
No, nor should you. Yeah.
So no, in Redraft, I'm not looking to acquire him. Would I flex him if given some of the injuries teams have faced? He's probably if you have a second flex in your league, probably his second flex worthy.
Yeah,
but I'm not more bullish on him than that. As with anything fantasy, obviously it's team dependent, but
yeah,
I don't see him working his way into like a starting wide receiver spot anywhere, even given the current state of injuries. So yeah, in a weaker skill player team, say maybe you in your draft, you invested early in a quarterback and tight end, so those running backs and wide receivers were a little bit weaker in comparison. Yeah, he probably finds his way into that second flex spot.
Yeah, I think without the touchdowns, you're still looking at the same numbers, right? To me, it's like the touchdowns is what made the week. And so, Herbert is practicing. He's limited, but supposedly the scan came back negative on the ankle, so he should be fine.
And if Herbert's out, just no shot.
No shot, of course not. Yeah, so. But yeah, I'm unless I'm just completely devastated at the wide receiver position. I think this is, like I said, these were some redraft surprises. We don't know if it'll stay hot or not, but I don't. Of this entire list, that's why I had it in the order I had it. Jennings, Darnold, QJ. That's how I would feel the most, quote unquote, comfortable throwing those guys into my lineups. But yeah, I'm pretty out on QJ. Again, I don't think it's sustainable. So on this show, I like to play some games. We're going to wrap the show today with a game here I call Who Am I? 3 different players. I'm going to give you some clues. And if you can get the player, awesome. If you can't, no hard feelings. I make it not easy, but not hard. I'll make it hopefully that it's possible for you to get these. And then we'll just talk a little bit about the guys and what we think. And we're going to start at the top. In full PPR, I am the RB 28 on the season. Please feel free to buzz in at any time. There's 4 different clues.
Okay, keep going.
I am averaging 5.5 yards per carry and 7.5 yards per catch. I am this one I think will help you. I am a rookie. I'm a rookie.
Bucky Irving?
Nope. I'm a rookie and I'm not, this is the second part of the clue. I am not the starter on my own team, which I guess still applies to Bucky Irving. Last clue is I play in the AFC East.
This is Braylon.
It's Braylon Allen. I have been very impressed with what I have seen from Braylon Allen. I brought the metrics up on purpose. 5.5 yards a carry, 7.5 yards a catch. His involvement is there, and Brees is still obviously extremely relevant. So from a dynasty perspective, I think you're thrilled if you grabbed Braylon Allen. Are you trading for Braylon Allen, and what is his valuation if you are interested in acquiring him?
I'm not quite sure what I'd be willing to give up for him. That's something I've actually kind of been pondering the last couple of weeks because Braylon Allen is a painful thing for me because he's a guy that as I watched him at Wisconsin over the last couple of years, freaking loved this guy. Like,
yeah,
I thought he was going to be viewed for sure as a top running back in his class when he decided to leave over those couple of years. I was obsessed with the guy. And then I didn't stick to my convictions come, combine time and draft time.
Right.
The NFL just did not seem nearly as enamored with him as me, and I took that a little bit too much to heart. And I have very little of him because I should have been taking him with every late second, early third round pick I had, and I didn't. And I hate myself for it because I feel like I knew it, and I allowed the NFL's opinion to ruin that for me. And that's not to say the NFL's opinion doesn't matter. Obviously, what these teams' opinion of their players and how they're going to use them has an effect. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, because I love when people on the internet do this, if you have a differing opinion on certain things, you think you know better than the GMs in the NFL? Well, fucking sometimes I do. Have you seen what some of the picks these guys make? So yes, I do think that sometimes. And
Jamarcus Russell, anyone?
I was on the right side of it and didn't stick to my guns. I'm looking to acquire him. Now, what the valuation is, God, it probably something that projected as a very late second. Still probably only looking to get second or third.
I was
just
going to say
because
I
think
would
you can get that done.
I would offer a third and a vet, and then if not, I would
Yeah,
come
or a
back
third
with a
and a vet would be
second.
better.
I think that's
Yes.
probably the right price. And look,
I guess
I
when we
think
always
his
ask
involvement.
valuations, I immediately go to pick valuations.
Yeah, but I
don't
think
know.
you have to remember this. It's a really good. There's nobody else there. So again, any player can get hurt on any play, and if Brees is unavailable for any reason, he has a bad, Chinese dinner the night before and has to sit on the toilet all week. I think Braylon Allen won't give you 100% of that, obviously, but I think you get 75% of what Brees can give you on a weekly basis. Based off what I've seen in a limited sample, I think he's doing really well in that offense.
Well, I think he gets if he were to get the full-time role for a stretch, I think you're looking at a low-end RB1.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yep, very possible. All right, number 2 here on the list.
Looked apart. I mean, talk about passing the eye test. Braylon Allen has blown that away.
I don't want to. I always try to keep these to. We never get an hour in, but that's okay. We're pretty close to the end here.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be interesting, and maybe we can talk about it another time, and we can bring it up in other shows. If you were to go back and re-rank this rookie class, I'm curious how many people would have Braylon Allen as the RB2 or even RB3 in this class behind Brooks, and if you still believe in Benson. So it's just interesting to see how things shake out, because he was well behind Corum, he was well behind Wright, he was behind Lloyd. I mean, he was a third rounder in most leagues that I was in, which is why I don't really keep my third round picks.
Regularly slip into the fourth. Regularly.
So I mean, like I don't usually keep those picks in my leagues. I generally trade them as additional cupcake toppings with my whatever I'm going to add in as my trade, which is why I have no shares of Braylon Allen, and it sucks. So here we go. Player number 2 in a full PPR. I am wide receiver 26 on the season. I have scored 37.2 fantasy points on the season, despite scoring 0 points in one of the first 3 weeks. I am averaging 24 yards per catch. I play in the NFC South.
At Deontay? Deontay Johnson?
It is not Deontay Johnson.
All right. Could it be Shaheed?
It is
No,
Rashid. Well done. It is Rashid
no.
Shaheed.
I thought he would have more than 37. Okay.
Well, he got a 0 last week.
Yeah,
so
sure.
there you go. That's going to bring your average down pretty quick. I just want to get a temperature check for him. Rashid Shaheed, right? We know that I crossed a Coleman, which is why I said first 3 weeks. I knew that would throw you off to see if it was Coleman, right? Rashid Shaheed to me is, I started him last week and I got burned. He got a 0. I was like, you know what? The Saints are hot. Derek Carr's hot. I'm staying in the Flames. I'm putting him in the lineup, and big old fat goose egg. I believe Rashid Shaheed is going to continue to be what he has always been. A big play guy. He can win you a week on the weeks that he catches the big long one or 2 big long ones from Carr, or he can get you a goose egg. So he is not someone that I am trading for. I don't know if you feel differently.
I don't. No, he's the prototype boomer bust player.
Yeah.
Which I'm probably not trading him away, because you're probably not getting anything that great if I have him,
Exactly.
but also not looking to acquire him. And most weeks, if you drafted him, you probably already knew going in that that's the type of player he was. And I remain comfortable doing that because I would hope that if you drafted him, you kind of built your team around with some other more reliable pieces that allowed you to have the risky potential home run hitter in a given week, that you can absorb that 0 on the occasional weeks, or, the 2-point, 3-point type games. So kind of exactly what I expected from him. I guess I didn't expect 2 huge weeks back to back to start.
Yeah.
But this is definitely the overall arch that I anticipate from Shaheed.
For sure. He is the 14th, 15th round pick in your Dynasty startup drafts. He is your $2 or $3 player when you've only got a couple bucks left in your auction drafts, and that's probably what you're getting for him. So last one here. Who am I in full PPR? I am tight end 5 on the season.
See, I should know that. I'm ashamed that I can't say, though.
I'm averaging 11.75 yards per catch.
All right, so it's not Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, nope. This one should give it away. I had 111 yards and 1 touchdown in week 1.
It's not likely.
It is Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
Yep, it is Isaiah
Okay.
Likely. So I actually want to talk about a different Baltimore tight end to wrap the show. What in the actual fuck, Mark Andrews? What
So
are we doing with Isaiah Likely, and what the hell are we doing with Mark Andrews? In Redraft and Dynasty, Best Ball is the only place where I'm like, great, I have him because he's doing nothing for me. But in Redraft and Dynasty, what are you doing with these Baltimore tight ends?
Well, it's funny. So you mentioned that the Tyreek and what for neighbors you've been asked about by like 4 different people.
4 people,
Mark
yeah.
Andrews, the most common person I've been asked about
100%.
this season, like far and away. And I will tell you, I traded for Mark Andrews in Dynasty last night at like 11:30 at night, and I felt wonderful about it. Now I'll say I got an incredible deal, so you might agree once I share that with you. I was able to move Zach Ertz and a 2026 second for Mark Andrews and a 2026 third. So I just
got a third
went
back
down around and traded Ertz.
Beautiful.
And the reason I bring that up before sharing the overall opinion is people are scared about Mark Andrews. And if you do still have any belief in him, he is very affordable right now. Now, obviously, every league is its own little ecosystem, but I don't think the Andrews owner in your league is going to have diamond hands. Let's just put it that way. And he's a guy I am very much looking to buy low on. Week 1 was disappointing, I'll say.
Yeah.
But what I will say about last week with the 0 is, look, the recipe to beat the Cowboys this year is to just run the ball down their damn throats. Andrews isn't a blocking tight end, so he just wasn't out there that much. And especially once they got up to a big lead and could especially attempt to ice the game away and just run. He just didn't have a role in that game script. So I'm not letting that 0 turn me off too much. I still think he is the most talented pass catcher that they have on the team and is still definitely the lead dog between the 2 tight ends. So I'm still all in on Andrews, and likely I'm trying to sell high if I can.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think that's where I'm at as well. Look, Mark Andrews is 27 years old. I mean, we're seeing Travis Kelce at 32, 33. Obviously, I think this is it. I think you're now watching him, the figure of speech, holding the bag. I think you are holding the bag if you have Kelce. You don't want to buy him, and you can't sell him. So I think for me with Andrews, he's still got more years left. Lamar's got the big contract. He's not going anywhere. Greg Roman seems to be a guy that they are going to hold on to. This offense hasn't really clicked so far this season, obviously, with the loss to the Raiders. And the Chiefs loss I'm less concerned with because it's the Chiefs. It's opening night. But the loss to the Raiders was just mind-boggling is the easiest word. So I'm still in on Andrews.
4th quarter 10-point collapse.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I say mind-boggling, because it's like I watched that game and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, is this really happening? Like, is this Matrix? Like, is there a glitch in the Matrix? What is going on
or
here?
Maybe Gardner Minshew's just a baller. How about that?
I
like Gardner, but
and now they're talking about replacing him this week. I don't know if it's Antonio Pierce's coach speak, but yeah. But what is interesting is that I don't think there is going to be, I hope there isn't going to be a better time to buy low on Andrews than right now. I think this is the window to buy low. I think you need one more spike week from likely to sell high. I think his value, obviously the last 2 weeks, is slowly declining. If Andrews comes and at some point Andrews is going to pop. And if it's this week, the window for likely has probably closed.
Well, to your point there, I think that's why you still have a small, narrow window of selling likely high is because Andrews just put up a 0. If Andrews had even had a 5-point game this past week, maybe not so much. Yeah. Because of that Andrews 0, I think you still have that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do it this week. I don't even care if Andrews pops this week. If he even just has 4 catches for 40 yards, like the likely sell high window's over.
Agreed. Yeah.
And yes. Oh, bring this up from Russ too. Todd Monken's the OC out in Baltimore now, not Roman.
I'm sorry, I said Greg Roman. Greg Roman's on the other. He's on our coast here on the left coast with us. Yes. Wrong year. So thank you for keeping me honest there. Todd Monken and not Greg Roman. Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers. So let's do we had a couple questions that we missed. I probably should have done these in between each segment, but we'll get to them here. And let's go roll back up to the top here. Perry W saying, I traded Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman, and Juwan Jennings for JJ, B-Rob. I needed RB depth and wanted to get rid of Hill. I assume this is a redraft format. Oh, excuse me. I guess I don't know, but which side are you? Let's just say it's Dynasty, since it's more of a Dynasty show. I know on the Dynasty side, which side I'm on, it's pretty clear for me. What about you?
On the Dynasty side, the Jefferson side, and
Yes.
I'm doing jumping jacks over it.
Yes, agreed. And let's switch it to
and-
redraft, because I'm very much on the Jefferson side, obviously, as well, in the
Yeah.
Dynasty
Now
side.
I'm still historically. Look, I haven't really been a Brian Robinson guy, but it's looking nice there. With
And
Jalen.
Austin Eckler's going to miss this week.
performed better. Yeah, he is.
Yep.
And I'm, as I already mentioned earlier in the show, Pittman, I'm pretty low on.
Yep.
Just in general, that's not going to change for me as long as Anthony Richardson is at quarterback. Juwan Jennings is going to have a shelf life, so I think good job moving him there. And Hill, look, I still think it's possible. He's a great receiver, no matter who's a quarterback. Obviously, this last week didn't go well, but he may still get his to probably come back later in the year. So yeah, you're losing something there, but to bring in Justin Jefferson and Brian Robinson, I mean, as long as they're healthy, surefire guys, I'm all for it.
Yep, I'm on that side, and regardless of format. So, Andre saying, in a redraft league, do you think a package of Garrett Wilson and Chris Godwin gets me CeeDee Lamb?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Now, if I'm the Lamb owner, I'm not making that trade, but I think that might be possible in some leagues. I really do.
I agree.
Now, kind of an extreme example, just using a league I'm in with my mother-in-law, but she knows more about football than we've forgotten. So, or she's forgotten more than we know about. So I can't set the whole damn thing backwards. So
yeah.
But yeah, she's during the afternoon games. She was expressing a lot of frustration over her CD pick in our league. And so, I mean, you find that kind of person. If the CD owner's 1 and 2, 0 and 3, yeah, I think that might get it done. I really do.
I think it's possible. And look, Garrett Wilson's catching touchdowns, so the yardage isn't great right now, and they're running the ball a ton, but he's catching touchdowns, and that saves your week. So, yeah, I think it's possible. I would send that trade, and
I think Godwin's production is sustainable too. Honestly,
I was going to say, I mean, Godwin in the slot's interesting. Baker's slinging it right now, and I think it's possible. Straight up, the trade that's on the screen here gets done. If not, I would add a third piece and ask for a running back, something back, and see if that gets, lower end guy, and see if that gets it done. Maybe you add Carson, somebody that's not sexy, but it's like, I could live without, and maybe it's P-Round, you know what I mean? It's one of those committee guys, but I think it's possible, and that is gets done there. So I want to go to, what do we have here? This is an interesting. Wicked Pompano. I'm running back poverty, but wide receiver rich in a very deep dynasty league. Who would you try to make a move for, an RB1, or make moves for picks in the upcoming class?
You go first.
Every league is different, as we talk about, but I do think it depends where you're at. If you're in a rebuild, it changes versus if you're kind of middle of the pack. So I want to take the middle of the pack stance to assume that you're going to have a middle of the first round pick, assuming you have all of your draft picks. I'm very bullish on next year's running back class that is coming out. I think this year's running back class was poo-poo. We had Brooks, we had Benson. They were we haven't seen ceiling. We haven't seen anything from them right now, but
Braylon Allen might be the RB1.
It's so funny you just said that. I was just going to say, I was like, Braylon Allen might be the RB1 right now, right? We talked about him, but I think consensus rankings was Brooks, Benson, and then a tier break. And then it was kind of fill in the blank of who is the RB3. Whereas next year, the two keys I want to say is it is a much deeper class.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the other caveat. We have not seen a first round NFL drafted running back. I think you could see an RB go in the first round next year, and not because someone needs an RB, but because there actually might be some guys that are talented enough to be worthy of being drafted in the first round. So Bijan and Gibbs obviously are in the elite tier, having been first round backs. But other than that, we've not seen guys. So
the only other one recently I can think of is ETN.
And he was, if I'm right, it was
like late teens or something like that.
Late teens I was thinking in that same space. So, but I would try to go that route. I would pick up picks and I would try to target that class, because the RB1s right now, I don't think you can get them. You can't trade for CMC for the injury. Bijan, Gibbs, Saquon, Kyron off the big week. You're not getting. ETN I saw go on the block in a league today, and I think it's because I put a post up on the league and said I'm looking for an RB, and I made that small trade we talked about, Mooney for Steele, and then all of a sudden, Rasta got a trade. All of a sudden, the domino effect. So I don't think of the elite tier running RB1s you can trade for one right now. So I would go for the guys next year.
Not without getting gouged. And
Right,
like you
right.
absolutely love the incoming running back class. I mean, we've got Gene T, we've got Judkins, we've got Henderson. I'm very excited for this
Henderson.
group.
Well, and remember, Henderson could have come out this year and chose to go back to Ohio State. So and he probably, according to NFL scouts, would have been a early day 2 pick if he didn't go in the first round.
Yeah,
so
I think it would have been, certainly from in our world, Dynasty fantasy players would have been viewed as the for sure RB1 of the class. So
I agree, especially with the ACL for Brooks. Yeah. So that's what we would do. 12-man PPR from Preston here. Just traded Pollard for Mike Evans. I have JT, James Cook, Etienne, Debo, Higgins, Jaden Reed, Pickens. Is this a good trade? Go ahead, Tycoon. What's your thoughts?
I do like it because I think the running back room is fine. I love that trio of Taylor, Cook, and Etienne, especially in 12 team. Obviously, Debo's banged up. Higgins just getting back close. He was a couple of feet from a really nice day.
Really nice day.
Reed and Pickens. So yeah, I'm all for bringing in a higher end receiver and getting rid of your RB4 for the guy who's going to start on this team right now.
That's what I was going to say. I lean the Evans trade. I think the Evans side, I think this is a good trade. You've got a poor offense. I know they're 3-0, but Pickens is, you know what I mean? Like it's just inconsistent. Jaden Reed is inconsistent. I know Malik Willis ran for 1 billion yards last year. And even though Reed had some decent value in week 2 with Malik Willis, he needs Jordan Love back. Higgins obviously coming back. Debo's injured. So yeah, I think you're adding a receiver. I'll be honest. I'm trying to do this in a league, not Mike Evans. I'm trying to find different. This is my read. Let me just read this to you really quickly. My main redraft team. You ready? Here's my wide receiver room. T. Higgins, Tank Dell, Demarcus Robinson, Lad McConkey, AJ Brown, Debo Samuel, Puka Nacua. So I need some help because my first 3 picks are missing. They are not participating in the football at the moment. So yeah, I'm trying to do something similar. It's very difficult with the wide receivers being all banged up the way that they are. So
honestly, the more we talk about it, that's a hell of a trade. Nice job, Preston. Nice job.
Good trade. Yep. Steve 562. Should I trade Carr and Worthy for Aaron Jones? I know you are an Aaron Jones owner, so I'll let you go first on this one.
Excuse
me. Really quick. Apologies. Really quick. I still have Richardson and Darnold. Sorry, I forgot the second part of the question there. That does make a difference.
I still wouldn't do it in Superflex. I think having that third quarterback is important, especially when we're seeing how guys are dropping this year.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't look to do that. But in 1 QB, why would he have 3? So it's got to be Superflex.
It's got to be Superflex. Yep.
No, I don't think I would.
I wouldn't either. And my reasoning is the wheels could fall off at any time with Richardson and Darnold. And again, they could fall off with Carr too. But look, Carr's been hot. He started well.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I'll be honest. If this is my quarterback room, who do the Saints have this week?
Yeah, you can
Atlanta.
it's kind of a dangerous thing to do, but you can kind of play matchups with that group.
I was going to say I would kind of stream a quarterback from my own QB room. I'm probably of this group. I'm probably starting Carr this week. Darnold on the road at Green Bay. That's actually a good defense. And then, of course, we've got Richardson sort of Mr. 50%. But Carr against Atlanta on Monday night, I think I'd probably start Carr. So away we go. All right, man. Well, I think those are all the questions that I wanted to get to as far as what was in the chat, and loving the fact that we were able to do a show together, man. This was awesome. This has been a really good time. I know we went a little longer than I wanted to go, but thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to give you the full screen here. Oh, that's me. Whoopsies. Nobody wants to see me. All right. Well, I can't.
Well,
there you go.
Appreciate
tell people where they can find you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, brother. And yeah, this always happens to me when I have a guest on my show too. I end up going a little bit longer than I planned to. The nature of the dialogue just takes place. But I am Tycoon. You can find me, the Fantasy Boardroom, as noted earlier in the show. We do our show Tuesday nights. The official time is listed when we do our reads here is 7 p.m., but I often will start at 6:30. So either 6:30 or 7 on Tuesday nights, you'll find me. We cover a variety of things, mostly redraft, touch on some Dynasty, touch on some props at times. Since the move to Tuesday, a little less props because lines are not really all the way out there yet. And you can find me on Twitter. I will never call it X, at FF_Tycoon. And you can also find me in our Sleeper channel, the Get Right Fantasy Network Sleeper official channel, where we're talking trades, we're talking roster management, things like that all the time. So post your questions there. You'll get answers, from me, from Rasta, from Frank, from Phil, from Kendall, from anybody at the Get Right crew, and also from just our wonderful and engaged community. We got a lot of sharp people out there that love to talk ball with us. You're probably one of those people listening right now, watching right now. And we appreciate your input there, helping out the overall Get Right family. And happy to finally have done a show here with Phil. Thrilled that we are both part of the Get Right family. Happy we finally did a show together. Obviously long overdue since we have been part of the Get Right team together. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And happy to have been part of this Extra Point, or this edition of the Extra Point this week.
I appreciate it, brother. We love having you. And for all of us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, thanks for joining another episode of The Extra Point. I will be back tomorrow night. We will be doing a quick, only 30 to 45-minute show. We're going to go through DFS, some of the underdog weeks lines that I like this week. And then, of course, I haven't been doing, and I need to, some weekly picks. I've had people asking about their confidence pools and what I like on weekly picks. So we'll be adding that in as well. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button to the Fantasy Boardroom. Obviously, Get Right. And then, of course, the Extra Point. For those that are looking for the podcast version, you can catch this episode tomorrow on the Spotify channel as well as Patreon. And appreciate you being here, man. I'm excited for the week. Good luck in all of your leagues, and looking forward to doing another show with you sometime soon.
You as well, man. And I'm sure we'll be matching up in that Ambassador League sometime soon. So we might have to re-engage when we're facing off.
That would be a fun show. All right, y'all. Have a good night. I will see y'all tomorrow.
Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up.
Right on, man. That was fun.
It was awesome. Oh, we're still live.
Thank you.